Good evening, everyone. In the last session, we understood what is software project, why we need to develop software projects, what is the purpose of software project, and what is project architecture, and what are the technologies available to develop the project, what are the front-end technologies, what are back-end technologies, and what database is available, what is the purpose of database, and what is DevOps that we discussed in the last session. So if you see software project is nothing but collection of programs. By collecting several programs, one project will be prepared. Software projects are mainly used to reduce human efforts like ticket booking, online banking, online shopping, online classes like this. Whatever the work that we use it to do manually, now everything is automated by using this software project. So if you consider a software project, that will have 3 layers. In the software project, mainly 3 layers will be available. One is front end, second one is back end, third one is database. Front end means user interface, presentation layer will be available. End user will communicate with the application by using front end. Then front end will communicate with the back end. In the back end, business logic will be available. That back end will communicate with database. Database will be available for every project which is used to store the data. There are several databases available in the market like Oracle, MySQL, and MongoDB. Here, to develop backend of the application, there are several technologies are available like Java, .NET, Python, Node.js, PHP, etc. By using any one of this backend technology, the project backend will be developed. Similarly, to develop the front end of the application, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Bootstrap, then either Angular or React people will use. Like this, application architecture will be available. In order to develop the application in the company, multiple teams will be available. Development team will be available, operations team will be available, and a testing team also will be available. What are the roles of development team in the project? Development team is responsible to develop the code, to develop the application. They will understand the given requirements given by the client. Clients will give the requirements to develop the projects. Development team will understand those requirements. They will analyze the requirements. Then they will do the planning for the development. Then they will jump into coding part. They will write the code. They will develop the programs. They will prepare the application. Once coding is completed, then they will test that code is working as expected or not. So developers are responsible for unit testing. Whatever the code they have done, is that code working as expected or not, they are going to test it. So once the testing is completed, they will go for code integration. Multiple team members will be available in the project. They will be working from different locations. All the developers' code should be integrated at one place. So that's where code integration comes into picture. When the code is integrated, if there are any problems in the code, then developers are responsible for bug fixing. So these are called as roles and responsibilities of developers in the project. Development team will be available. They will do the coding in the project. Next one, operations team will be available. These are called as IT team. IT team or operations team will be available. What are the roles and responsibilities of operations team in the project? Operations team is responsible to set up infrastructure for the project. So in order to run the application, we need to maintain some infrastructure. So here, operations team is responsible to set up the infrastructure that is required for the project. Infrastructure means the machines which are required, the servers, network, storage, security, all these things comes under infrastructure. So in order to set up this infrastructure, operations team will be available for the project. Earlier, people used to set up this infrastructure manually, but nowadays we are using automation to set up the infrastructure. That's where Terraform software comes into picture. By using this Terraform, we are going to automate infrastructure setup in the project. Once infrastructure setup is completed, then we need to perform configuration management. For the configuration management, we are going to use Ansible. To perform configuration management, we are going to use Ansible, right? What is the meaning of configuration management? Configuration management, nothing but installing the required softwares in the machines. Then once this is done, then we need to set up repositories. Developers should integrate all the code at one place. For that, we need to set up repositories. And which team member should have read access, which team member should have write access, that role-based access also we are going to manage. And we are going to create CI/CD pipelines to deploy our job. CI/CD pipeline, nothing but continuous integration and continuous deployment. To do that continuous integration and deployment, we are going to use Jenkins software in the project. Then after using that CI/CD pipeline, we need to perform project build and deployment process. For that, we will be using Maven, Docker, and Kubernetes software. Once application deployment completed, we are responsible to monitor that application. We are responsible to monitor infrastructure of our application. These are called as roles and responsibilities of operations engineer. As a DevOps engineer, we are responsible to perform these operations in the project. As part of our job, day-to-day activities will be like this: set up the infrastructure, configuration management, set up the repositories and perform RBACs, create pipeline jobs, perform the build and deployment, and monitor the application. Testing team will be available. They are responsible to test application, identify the bugs, report the bugs, and provide the sign-off to deliver project to the client. So here, development team will be working in the project and operations team also working in the project. As both teams are working on the same project, there should be some collaboration between the teams. That's where this DevOps concept came into picture. DevOps full form, development plus operations. DevOps full form, development plus operations. So what is this DevOps? DevOps is a culture, or we can say DevOps is a process. DevOps nothing but set of practices. The main aim of the DevOps process to establish the collaboration between development team and operations team. So by using this DevOps, we are going to deliver application to the client with high quality in the less time. Got my point? DevOps is a process. DevOps is a culture. DevOps nothing but set of practices. DevOps nothing but a process. DevOps nothing but a culture. Using this DevOps, we can deliver our application to the client with a high quality. So here, development team, operations team is working on the same project. So there should be some collaboration between those teams. That's where this DevOps concept came into picture. What is DevOps lifecycle? What is DevOps lifecycle? DevOps lifecycle contains 7 C's. DevOps lifecycle contains, we have 7 C's. We have 7 C's in DevOps lifecycle. So what are those 7 C's in the DevOps lifecycle? The first one is continuous planning. The first one is continuous planning. And the second one is continuous development. Continuous development will be available. Continuous planning, continuous development, then continuous integration will be available. Continuous integration will be available. Continuous testing will be available. Continuous testing will be available. Continuous deployment will be available. Continuous deployment, continuous monitoring, continuous feedback. Continuous monitoring and continuous feedback. Continuous monitoring and continuous feedback will be available. So this is called as DevOps lifecycle. So as we are going to develop the project, every day the requirements will be changed. Every day the project code is going to change. So that's why continuous planning is required in the project to accommodate new changes, to accommodate new requirements in the project. So continuously the planning will be available, what we need to develop, what we need to deliver, what we need to deploy, what we need to deliver. The continuous planning is required in the project. And the continuous development will be available. Development team will be working continuously to write the code and to fix the bugs. When the code is modified, the latest code should be integrated in the repository. For that, continuous integration will be available in the project. When the code is modified, then immediately the testing is required. Testing team will be available to test our application functionality is working as expected or not. Then once the testing is completed, we need to deploy the application. Continuous deployment will be available and continuous monitoring will be available in the project. So once the application deployment is completed, we need to monitor and we need to get the continuous feedback from the clients. So these seven steps will be repeated and these are iterative in our application development lifecycle. So this is called as DevOps lifecycle. In the DevOps lifecycle, 7 phases will be available, or 7 C's will be available. Those 7 C's are continuous planning, continuous development, continuous integration, continuous testing, continuous deployment, continuous monitoring, continuous feedback will be available. What is this DevOps? DevOps is nothing but development plus operations. The main purpose of DevOps to establish collaboration between development team and operations team. So DevOps is called as a culture which is very trending in the IT companies nowadays. DevOps is a process which companies are adopting now. DevOps nothing but set of practices. By using these DevOps practices, we can establish collaboration between development team and operations team. Why companies are adopting to this DevOps process? What is the main goal of the DevOps? The main purpose or the main aim of the DevOps is to provide application to the client with a high quality in the less time. These DevOps practices started in the year of 2007 in the industry. So whatever the work that we used to do manually in the earlier days, now we are automating by using these DevOps practices. When you go for these DevOps practices in the project, these 7 continuous stages will be available. So when we are working on the project, continuous planning will be available, continuous development will be available, continuous integration will be available, continuous testing, continuous deployment, continuous monitoring, and continuous feedback will be available. If you see the DevOps logo also, it will be like an infinite symbol. DevOps images. If you go for DevOps images, then you can see that here the logo is available like an infinite symbol. So continuous planning, continuous code, build, test, release, deploy, operate, monitor. So there is no end for this. So this is infinite symbol. This is infinite symbol. So what is the meaning of this infinite symbol? This is continuous process in the project. So planning will be available, coding will be there, build will be available, test will be available, release will be available, deploy will be there, operations will be available, monitoring will be available. This is infinite symbol. This is the logo for the DevOps. Dev plus Ops. Development will be available, operations will be available. Development team will be involved in the project, operations team also will be involved in the project. As both teams are involved in the project, there should be some collaboration between the development team and operations team. So that's where DevOps became very popular in the market. Are you guys clear? What is the DevOps and what are the roles of DevOps engineer in the market? What is DevOps? What is DevOps lifecycle? Roles and responsibilities. Roles and responsibilities of DevOps engineer. As a DevOps engineer, what we are going to do in the project or in the company. So once you join in the company as a DevOps engineer, what is your responsibility? You are responsible to set up infrastructure. Set up infrastructure. What is the meaning of infrastructure setup? So here we are going to set up machines. We need to set up servers. We need to set up storage. We need to set up security and network. For our project execution, we need machines, we need servers, we need storage, we need security, and we need a network. As a DevOps engineer, you are responsible to set up this infrastructure in the project. To set up infrastructure in the project, earlier people used to work with the manual creation. Now we are using Terraform to automate. The next one, configuration management. Whatever the softwares that are required, we need to install all the softwares. We need to copy all the required files from one machine to another machine. Installing softwares, copying the files, managing the configurations. Those things are responsible of the DevOps engineer. Configuration management. Then set up source code repositories. Set up source code repositories. For the project, a repository required to integrate all the code. All the developers' code should be integrated at one place. For that, we need to set up source code repositories, either by using GitHub or Bitbucket. Set up artifact repositories by using Nexus or JFrog. Set up artifact repositories. So source code repositories are nothing but they are used to store project to source code. Set up source code repositories to integrate developers code. Okay, developers will be working from different locations. All the developers code should be integrated at one place. For that, we need to set up a repository. And here, set up artifact repository to store build artifacts. Whatever the jar file or war file is available for the project, we need to store them. For storing build artifacts, we can use either Nexus repository or JFrog repository. To store the project source code, either GitHub repository or Bitbucket repository we are going to use. To store the project artifacts, we are going to use Nexus or JFrog. So here we are going to use Terraform. Okay. Here we are going to use Ansible. Okay. Here we are going to use GitHub or Bitbucket. Here we are going to use Nexus or JFrog. Okay. So alternate software is also available. Either you can use Bitbucket or you can use GitHub. You can use Nexus or you can use JFrog to set up artifact repositories. Manage role-based access. Okay, so which team member should perform which action in the repository? That RBAC we need to perform. Manage role-based access. That means for few team members, we need to provide only read permission for the Git repository. There is a fresher in the project. He's just joined in the project. For the fresher, we should provide only read access for the repository, not the write access. We should provide only read access for the repository, not the write access. Okay, guys. So for that person, we should give only read access in the repository. For few people, we should provide read and write access for experienced people. The role-based access we need to manage in our applications. Okay. Then after, we need to create CI/CD pipelines. Create CI/CD pipelines using Jenkins. CI/CD pipelines using Jenkins. Jenkins is a CI/CD software which is used to automate the project build and deployment process. It is used to automate the project build and deployment process. Create CI/CD pipelines using Jenkins. Got my point? Then after, perform build and deployment. So build and deployment. Whatever the code is given by whatever the code is given by the developers, we need to convert that code into executable format and we need to deploy that code. So that is perform build and deployment. So in order to perform the build and deployment here, we will be using Maven, we will be using Docker, and we will be using Kubernetes. Okay. So here, create CI/CD pipelines. To create the CI/CD pipelines, we are using Jenkins software. To perform project build and deployment process, we will go for Maven, Docker, and Kubernetes. Got it? Then after this, we need to monitor our infrastructure. Monitor CI/CD pipelines. Monitor CI/CD pipelines, how they are working. Monitor CI/CD pipelines, monitor infrastructure. Monitor infrastructure. So in order to monitor our infrastructure, we are going to use Prometheus and Grafana. Prometheus, Grafana, Negios, something like this. Setup, log monitoring. Okay. Setup, centralize application log files. Centralize application logging. So for that, we are going to use EFK stack, Elasticsearch, Kibana, and Fluentd. By using that, we are going to centralize our application log messages. For that, we are going to perform EFK stack, identify issues, fixing issues, issue fixing. Okay. If any problem occurs in the infrastructure or in the application build and deployment process, then we are responsible to fix those issues. So day to day, as a DevOps engineer, you are going to perform all these operations. These are called as roles and responsibilities of DevOps engineer. Got my point? DevOps is a process. DevOps is a process. It is used to establish collaboration between development team and operations team. As a DevOps engineer, our main aim is to deliver application to the client with the high quality in the less time. So in this DevOps, these are the 7 steps we are going to follow: continuous planning, development, integration, testing, deployment, monitoring, and feedback. So as a DevOps engineer, what we are going to do in the project. So every day, what activities we are going to perform, what are our roles and responsibilities in the company as a DevOps engineer. We are responsible to set up infrastructure required for the project. For that, we are going to use Terraform. We are responsible to perform configuration management. For that, we are going to use Ansible. We are going to set up source code repositories for code integration. For that, we can use GitHub and Bitbucket. We are going to set up artifact repositories to store build artifacts by using Nexus and JFrog. And we are going to manage role-based access for the team members, which person should perform which action in the repository that we are going to manage. And we are going to create CI/CD pipelines by using Jenkins. And we are going to perform project build and deployment. So to perform the build and deployment, we will use Maven, Docker, Kubernetes. And perform the build and deployment, we are going to perform code review, generate code review report. Okay. To generate the code review report, we are going to use SonarQube. All the developers' code will be integrated. We need to review that code and we need to identify the mistakes done by the developers, and we need to share code review report with the development team. Okay. So perform code review and generate the code review report. That code review report we need to share with the development team. If any bugs available in the code, if any problems available in the code, Sonar will identify and it will generate a report. By looking at the Sonar report, developers are going to fix those issues, right? So code review is also one of the responsibility of the DevOps engineer. And we are going to monitor the pipelines. Whatever the pipelines we have created in one project, multiple pipelines will be available. We need to monitor those pipelines. And we need to monitor the project infrastructure, how project infrastructure is working. Are there any challenges with the infrastructure? Are there any problems with the infrastructure? We need to monitor that. And we need to centralize application logs. Okay. For that, we are going to use EFK stack. All the logs will be stored at one place, right? Developers will get the logs to understand problems in the application execution. And as a DevOps engineer, if any issue occurred with respect to infrastructure, with respect to the deployment, we need to fix those issues. If any problems available in the code, developers will do the code fix If there is any problem in the infrastructure, DevOps engineer is responsible to do fixing. Can you guys read all these points? What are the roles and responsibilities of DevOps engineer? Can you guys read the roles and responsibilities of DevOps engineer? Come on, guys, please read all the points. Total 12 points I have given. Tomorrow, when someone asks you, what are your roles and responsibilities, you need to explain these points only. Are you guys able to read the roles and responsibilities of DevOps engineer? Especially non-IT people, are you able to understand what is DevOps? Why we need to go for a DevOps? And what are the roles and responsibilities of DevOps engineer? If anybody joined today, previous class videos and previous class notes I have shared in the WhatsApp group. I will share it once again after today's class is completed. If you are not part of that WhatsApp group, please join. Ajit, RBAC nothing but role-based access. Which team member should have read access for the repository? Which team member should have both read and write access for the repository? We are going to manage. That is called RBAC. RBAC nothing but role-based access. So for some people, we are going to use write permission. We will give write permission. They can perform operations. For some people, we'll give only read access. All right. K8 is nothing but it is a Kubernetes. K8s is the short form of Kubernetes. It is used for orchestration purpose to deploy our application. Kubernetes is used for orchestration purpose. It is used to deploy our applications. Ansible, Dinesh, Ansible is used for configuration management. Configuration management, nothing but installing the required softwares. For example, there are 100 computers available to run our application. In 100 computers, I want to install Java. Installing Java in the 100 computers, manually will take a lot of time. So to automate configurations, we are going to use Ansible software. Ansible is used for configuration management. All good? Yeah. Once again, please read what is DevOps. You people are here to learn DevOps course, right? With AWS Cloud. So let's understand what is DevOps, what is DevOps lifecycle, what are the roles and responsibilities of DevOps engineer. Okay. Artifacts, nothing but that is whenever you package your application for execution, it will create a jar file or war file that is called as artifact. So to store the artifacts, we will use an access or JFrog. Once the developer code is integrated, all the code we will convert into executable format that is called artifact. We will set up artifact repositories to store the build artifacts. Build artifacts, nothing but a jar file or war file will be available. To store the jar file or war file, we will use Nexus or JFrog servers in the project. Grafana is used for monitoring our application infrastructure. What are the servers are available? What is the health of the server? How servers are working? How much memory they are consuming? What is the CPU utilization of our server? What is the network speed of our servers? Everything can be monitored by using Prometheus and Grafana. Prometheus and Grafana are used for monitoring purpose. Got it? Are you guys clear with roles and responsibilities of DevOps engineer? Yeah, fine. Any other questions if you guys are having, you can ask me at the end of the session. At the end of the session, you can interact with me. Terraform, I told you, Terraform is used for infrastructure setup. Joshi, Terraform is used to set up the machines, servers, storage, security, network in the cloud. In order to run our application, we need Terraform. By using Terraform, we are going to set up infrastructure required for the project. Viranjanilu, we can talk at the end of the session regarding your question. Okay. All of you comfortable with roles and responsibilities of DevOps engineer in the project? We are going to learn all these tools practically, and we are going to work on all the tools practically with the real-time scenarios. Everything we are going to discuss practically. In the company, how a DevOps engineer will work, in the same way we are going to work with all these tools as part of the course. Do you got my point? Yes, perfect. So guys, as of now, what we have discussed in our classes. So as of now, we discussed course introduction, DevOps with AWS course introduction. Okay. And we discussed about prerequisites for a DevOps learning. Prerequisites to learn DevOps with AWS. Course content, I can say it is roadmap. What we are going to learn in the course that we have discussed. Then after, we have discussed about DevOps tools overview. What are the tools we are going to learn in the DevOps course, and what is the purpose of each DevOps tool, and AWS services overview. What are the AWS cloud services we are going to learn? What is the purpose of each service? Just rough idea we got. What is DevOps tools? What are the DevOps tools available? Around 18-19 tools are there. We discussed just names of the tools and purpose of the tools. As part of this training, we are going to work with all the tools practically to become a good DevOps engineer. AWS services overview. AWS cloud we are going to learn in the course. From the AWS cloud, what services we are going to learn that we have discussed. Then after, we discussed about what is software project. What is software project and why? Collection of programs is called as a software project. Software projects are used to automate manual work. Whatever the work we are doing manually, we can automate that work by using software projects. Okay. And we discussed about software project architecture. Software project architecture. Software project will be developed in 3 layers: front end, back end, and database will be available. So what is front end, what is back end, and what is the database? So we learned what is the front end and front end technologies. Front end is nothing but the user interface. End users will communicate with our application by using front end. In order to develop the front end, there are several front end technologies are available. Using these technologies, people will develop front end of the project. Next one, what is the back end and what are the back end technologies are available? What is back end? Back end contains business logic in the application. So here, in order to develop the back end, there are several back end technologies are available like Java, Python, .NET. So application will contain front end. To develop the front end of the application, people are using either Angular or React.js. Backend contains business logic of the application. To develop backend of the application, people are using Java or .NET or Python or Node.js. What is the database and what databases are available in the market? So what is the database? Database is a software which is used to store the data. For every application, database will be available, which is used to store the data permanently. And databases, there are several databases available in the market: Oracle, MySQL, Postgres, SQL Server, MS SQL, MongoDB, Cassandra, Aurora, DynamoDB. There are so many databases available. Depends on the project requirement. We are going to use one database. Then after, we discussed about development team roles and responsibilities. Development team roles and responsibilities. For every project, development team will be available. The development team is responsible to understand the requirements, analyze the requirement, plan it, then develop the code, code integration, unit testing, bug fixing. Those things will be done by development team in our project. What are the roles and responsibilities of the developers that we have discussed here? Development team, roles and responsibilities. In every project, development team will be available to develop the code required for the project. Then after, we discussed about testing team roles and responsibilities. So in every project, testing team will be available. The testing team is responsible to test the application functionality. So they are responsible to verify and validate application functionality is working as expected by the client or not. They are going to test the application functionality. If anything is not working as expected, then they are going to report to bugs in the project. So that bugs which are reported by the testing team, developers are going to fix the bugs. That means there is some problem in the coding. They are going to correct that coding. Testers will identify the problems in the application coding. Then developers are going to fix those problems. Reporting bugs will be the duty of the testing team. Testing team is responsible to provide QA sign-off. QA sign-off means application is working as expected. We can deliver the application to the client. Then we discussed about DevOps team roles and responsibilities. We discussed about DevOps team roles and responsibilities. As a DevOps engineer, what we are going to do in our job? We are responsible to set up infrastructure. We are responsible to manage configurations. We are responsible to set up the repositories. We are responsible to manage role-based access for the team members. We are responsible to create the CI/CD pipelines using Jenkins. We are responsible to perform project build and deployment process. We are responsible to monitor the application infrastructure. We are responsible to fix any issues that are occurring in the infrastructure. Okay, those are the roles and responsibilities of DevOps engineer. Then after, we discussed about what is the DevOps and why DevOps. Okay. DevOps is the combination of development plus operations. To establish the collaboration between development team and the operations team, we are going to use this DevOps. So by using this DevOps culture, DevOps is called as a culture. DevOps is called as a process. DevOps called as set of practices. By using this DevOps process, we can automate application delivery process with a high quality in the less amount of time. So it is going to establish the collaboration between the development teams and operations team in the project. Then we discussed about DevOps lifecycle. DevOps lifecycle. 7 C's of DevOps. What are the 7 C's of the DevOps? What are the primary goals of the DevOps? Right? Continuous planning, continuous development, continuous integration, continuous deployment, continuous testing, continuous monitoring, continuous feedback. Like this, there are 7 C's available. Those are called as DevOps lifecycle stages. So as part of our classes, we have learned these details, guys. Course introduction. This is our 14th DevOps with AWS course, which started last Thursday, right? It is 14th DevOps with AWS course. In this course, we are going to learn Linux, DevOps, and AWS. No, there are no prerequisites available for this course because anyone can learn this DevOps. If you are having a degree, that is sufficient to learn the DevOps with AWS. Coding knowledge is not required. IT experience is also not required to learn the DevOps. Course is divided into several modules, right? First module is introduction, second Linux, shell scripting, DevOps tools, AWS, projects, interview preparation. Like this, we have divided the course into 7 modules. So there are several DevOps tools available like Maven, Git, Bitbucket, Jenkins, Tomcat, Docker, Kubernetes, Terraform, Ansible, Grafana, Prometheus, Jira, SonarQube. All the tools we are going to learn, and we have discussed about the purpose of each tool. Okay. And as part of this course, we are going to learn AWS Cloud Platform as well, right? So that AWS Cloud we are using to set up infrastructure required for the project. So what services we are going to learn from the AWS Cloud? What is the purpose of each service also we discussed. Then what is project and why project we discussed. Software project architecture we learned. In the project, what is front end and what are the front end technologies available that we discussed. In the project, what is back end? What are the back end technologies available? What is the database and what database is available in the market? What are the roles and responsibilities of development team in the project? Roles and responsibilities of testing team in the project? Roles and responsibilities of DevOps team in the project? And finally, we learned what is the DevOps and why DevOps, okay? And what is the DevOps lifecycle? What are the 7 C's of the DevOps also we understood. Are you clear with my point? Are you able to revise everything that we discussed in the class? Are you able to revise everything that we discussed in the class, guys? Yeah. For all these things, notes also prepared. I have shared the PDF notes also. So if you see, I have prepared a PDF material for all these bootcamp, the introduction classes, right? So DevOps bootcamp notes I have prepared. These notes, this PDF material I have shared in the WhatsApp group. I'm going to share this material once again after the today's class is completed in the WhatsApp group. So everything, what we learned, everything I have mentioned in this document. Everything I have mentioned in the document. So this document you can use for revision purpose. So like this, for every topic, a soft copy material will be provided for you. And backup videos also will be provided for you. If you are not part of that group, please join so that you will get the updates. Otherwise, you will miss the class notes and you will miss the backup videos. Okay, perfect, guys. Shall I move on to the next topic? Shall I move on to the next topic? The next topic that we need to learn, what is software development lifecycle? What is software development lifecycle, which is also called as SDLC? How one project will be developed in the company and what stages will be available in the project development process. What is SDLC in the software? In the interview, they will ask you about this also. What is SDLC? Which SDLC methodology you are following in your project? Right? SDLC stands for Software Development Lifecycle. SDLC stands for Software Development Lifecycle. SDLC represents software application development process from starting to ending. SDLC represents software project development process from starting to ending. So how one application will be developed and how one application will be delivered to the client, that a complete process is called as SDLC. That is nothing but Software Development Lifecycle. SDLC stands for Software Development Lifecycle. This SDLC represents application development process from starting to ending. We have below stages in the development lifecycle. We have several stages. In SDLC process. What are those stages? First one is requirements gathering. We need to collect the requirements from the client. If you want to develop one application to the client, then we need to collect the requirements from the client. Requirements gathering will be the first stage in the software development lifecycle. Nothing but what project we need to develop for the client, what functionalities client is expecting in the project. So we need to gather the requirements from the client. Then next one, analyze the requirements. Whatever the requirements given by the client, can we implement those requirements? Is it possible to develop those requirements or not? If client asks, if I click one button, a rocket should go to the sky. That we can't do. Okay. So any requirement which is given by the client, we need to analyze. Is it possible? Technically, can we do this or not? We need to analyze those requirements. That is called as requirements analysis phase. Once analysis is completed, then planning will be available. We need to plan the development and deployment and testing. Project planning will be available. After planning, then implementation. Implementation, nothing but here, development will come into picture. So first, when you want to develop a project, set of stages will be available. Those are called as SDLC stages. Requirements gathering, analyzing the requirements, planning, implementation, then testing will be available. Deployment will be available, and monitoring will be available. So these are the stages we are going to follow in order to develop our application. Can you guys read what are the stages we need to follow to develop one application? Guys, can you read what are the stages we are going to follow to develop our application? These are standard stages when you go for any application development process. These are called as SDLC phases in the market. SDLC phases will be available. Are you able to understand what is the SDLC? SDLC stands for Software Development Lifecycle. SDLC represents software project development process from starting to ending. We have several stages in the SDLC process. The first stage is requirements gathering. The second stage is analyzing the requirements. The third stage is planning the requirements development. Fourth stage is implementation. Fifth stage is testing. Sixth stage, development. Seventh stage is monitoring. So this is complete development life cycle of a project. Got it. So from starting to ending, how a project will be developed, how a project will be delivered to the client will be represented as a development life cycle. So here we have several SDLC methodologies in the market. We have several SDLC methodologies. Okay. The first and foremost SDLC methodology that came into market is waterfall model. The current methodology is Agile. Okay. So in the very starting in the IT industry, waterfall methodology came into picture. But in the waterfall methodology, there are some challenges available. To overcome the challenges involved in the waterfall model, we are going for Agile methodology. Now, if you observe, I have prepared some diagrams for that. What is SDLC? SDLC stands for Software Development Lifecycle. It is a process or it is a framework to represent how we are going to develop and deliver our project. So there are some stages in the SDLC: requirements gathering, analysis, planning, implementation, testing, deployment, maintenance or monitoring will be available. Those are called as SDLC phases that we have discussed. In the SDLC, the first SDLC methodology that came into market is called as waterfall model. Waterfall is the one of the first SDLC methodology. That is the first methodology that came into market. So if you see in the waterfall model, everything is a step-by-step process. Everything is a step-by-step process. That means first we need to gather the requirements. Once requirements gathering is completed, then only we need to go for designing the requirements. Once the designing is completed, then only we need to go for development. Once the development completed, then only we should go for testing. Once the testing completed, then only deployment, then only maintenance. Everything is a linear process in the waterfall model. So everything will happen step by step in the waterfall model. In the waterfall model, we will move only in the forward direction. When we are in the development phase, we cannot change the requirement. When you go for the waterfall model, requirements are fixed and budget also fixed. Whatever the requirements client has given, so only we are going to develop those requirements. Client cannot change the requirements in the middle because it is a linear process and it is only forward directional process. So if you are going to develop a project by using waterfall model, everything will happen step by step. This is also called as a sequential model. Waterfall is called as a sequential model. So we are going to implement the project in the sequential manner. Waterfall model. It is a linear process to develop and deliver the application. It is a linear process to develop and deliver the application. So every step, it is a linear process. All the stages will happen one after other. All stages will happen one after other. One after other. When you go for the waterfall model, requirements are fixed, budget is fixed. Requirements are fixed and budget is fixed in the waterfall model. Client involvement will be very less in the project. Client involvement is very less. Client will see the project only at the end. Client will see the project only at the end. Okay. If you are developing your application by using waterfall model, you need to imagine this diagram. Waterfall model is a step-by-step process in the project. All the stages will happen in the sequential manner. After one step is completed, then only we will go for the next step in the waterfall model. How the water will fall from top to bottom, similarly our development also will happen. First we will collect the requirements. Then once the requirements collection completed, we are done with that stage. Then we will go for the next stage. In the next stage, we will do only designing part. Once our designing got approved, then we will go for the development. When we are in the development phase, can client change the requirement? No, because it is a linear process. So client involvement will be very less in the project. client will see the project only at the end. Okay, now assume that client has given the requirements in the 2021. We have delivered the project to the client in the 2023. After 2 years, we delivered project to the client, but the client is not happy with our project. Client is not happy with the project. If a client is not happy with the project, then what we need to do? If client is not happy with the project, then what we need to do? So 2 years of time is wasted, and 2 years time is wasted, and money also wasted. Time is wasted and money also wasted. Are you guys getting my point? Are you guys getting my point? So waterfall is a linear model. Waterfall is a linear model in the SDLC. So everything will happen in the sequential manner. Everything will happen in the sequential manner when you go for waterfall methodology. Everything will happen in the waterfall methodology. It is a linear process. Waterfall methodology is a linear process. What are the problems in the waterfall methodology? Can you read these things? Are you guys clear with my point? So what is the problem if you develop the project by using waterfall model? What is the problem if we develop the project by using waterfall model? Client will see the project at the starting, or client will see the project at the end. When client will see the project in the waterfall model, at the end client will see the project. After 2 years, assume that we have taken 2 years to develop the project, and client is seeing his project after 2 years. Client is not happy with our development. Client is not happy with our development. Then what will happen? Can we go and change the requirements? Development completed, testing is completed, delivery also completed. Client has seen the project at the end. When a client sees the project at the end, he is not happy. Then 2 years time is wasted and money also wasted. So that's why nowadays companies are not preferring to develop using waterfall. The reason, the requirements are fixed in the waterfall methodology. Budget is also fixed in the waterfall methodology. Client involvement is very, very less in the project, and client will see the project only at the end. That's why the waterfall methodology is not recommended in the today's world, because in today's world, requirements are changing every day. In the today's world, requirements are changing every day. Very high competition is available in the market. Very high competition is available in the market. 2 years back, whatever the ideas I have to run the business, with those ideas, they are delivering the project today. Within these 2 years, my business model got changed. The market trend got changed. But with the outdated requirements, project will be delivered when you go for waterfall model. So that's why to overcome the problems of the waterfall model, currently people are using agile model. So what are the challenges are available in the waterfall model? To overcome the challenges of the waterfall model, people are going for agile methodology. Agile is an iterative approach. What is agile? Agile is an iterative approach to develop and deliver the application. So earlier, people used it to follow waterfall methodology to develop the project, but there are some challenges available in the project. Client will see the project only at the end. If a client don't like our delivery, then total money wasted and time wasted. So client don't like our delivery, then total money will be wasted and total time will be wasted. To overcome the challenges of the waterfall model, currently in the market, people are going for agile model. What is agile model? Agile is an iterative approach to develop and deliver the application. Development, testing, deployment is a continuous process in the agile methodology. Development, planning, development, testing, deployment, feedback. Feedback is continuous process in the agile methodology. Continuous process in the agile. So if you see the waterfall model, it is a linear model. Everything will happen step by step in the waterfall model. Whereas when you go for the agile model came into market to overcome the problems of the waterfall. In the today's market, 99.9% of the projects are developing based on agile methodology. What is agile methodology in the SDLC? Agile is called as iterative approach to develop and deliver the application. Agile is an iterative approach to develop and deliver the application. So in the agile methodology, here, whatever the SDLC stages are available, these stages are continuous process in the agile. It is a cyclic process, iterative approach. Agile is an iterative approach to develop and deliver the application. Planning, development, testing, deployment, feedback is continuous process in the agile methodology. So in the agile methodology, here, instead of developing the entire application at a time, our application will be developed in the form of sprints. So here, client has given 100 requirements. Instead of developing all the 100 requirements at a time, we will divide the requirements into multiple sprints. Sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3. So like this. So we are going to deliver the project to the client in multiple releases. We will deliver project to client in multiple releases. Those are called as sprints. So if a client has given example, client provided 100 requirements. Now, if I develop all the 100 and if I deliver, if a client don't like, our time will be wasted, our money will be wasted. So here, what we are going to do is first 30 requirements we are going to develop, plan, plus develop, test, deliver, take feedback. Okay, so this is called as sprint 1. Client has given 100 requirements. Instead of developing all the 100 requirements at a time, out of the 100 requirements, we will take only first 30 requirements. We will plan, design, develop, test, deploy, review, and launch. So first 30 requirements we will develop and we will deliver to the client and we will take the feedback from the client. Okay, client involvement is very high in the agile methodology. For every 2 months, for every 3 months, we will deliver some portion of the project to the client. Client involvement is very high in project. Okay, client satisfaction or client feedback is very important. Client feedback is very important. Client feedback is very important to proceed further. Okay, so here we are not going to develop everything in the single shot. So whatever the requirements given by the client, we are going to divide the requirements into multiple releases. Every release is called as one sprint. Client provided 100 requirements for the project development. Instead of taking all the 100 requirements at a time, we will take first 30 requirements, we will develop, we will test, deliver, and we will take the feedback. If a client is happy, then we will go for the next sprint. Then we will go for the next 30 requirements. We will develop, we will test, and we will deliver. Then we will go for sprint 3. We will develop next 30 requirements. And we will go for the sprint 4. And whatever the remaining requirements are available, we are going to develop and we are going to deliver. So like this, in the Agile methodology, planning, development, testing, deployment, feedback is a continuous process. So continuously, we are working on the planning, we are working on the development, we are working on the testing, deployment, delivery, take the feedback. That is a continuous process. That is DevOps lifecycle. If you see 7 C's of the DevOps: continuous planning, continuous development, continuous integration, continuous testing, continuous deployment, continuous monitoring, continuous feedback will be available. So here, every 1 month or every 2 months, we are going to deliver our application to the client and we are going to take the feedback from the client. So client involvement is very high in the project. Client feedback is very important to proceed further. So when you go for Agile methodology, requirements are not fixed. When you go for Agile methodology, project requirements are not fixed and project budget is not fixed. If requirements are changed, then duration will change, then budget is changed. So here we are going to deliver application to the client in the multiple sprints. So client has given 100 requirements. Out of the 100 requirements, we will take first 30 requirements, we will plan, we will develop, we will deploy, we will take the feedback. We will take the feedback. So once it is done, then if client asking some changes, then we will make those changes and we will deliver in the next sprint. Again, we will take the feedback from the client. Based on the feedback, we will go for the next sprint. So the project will be delivered to the client in multiple releases. Whereas if you go for the waterfall model, everything will be delivered at single shot at the end. So everything is a step-by-step process in the waterfall model. Budget is fixed, requirements are fixed, duration is fixed in the waterfall. We can't change anything in the middle. Client will see the project only at the end. If a client is not happy, money will be wasted, time will be wasted. To overcome these problems, we are going for Agile methodology. What is Agile methodology? Agile is an iterative approach to develop and deliver the application. In the Agile methodology, planning will be there, development will be there, testing, deployment, and feedback will be available. That is a continuous process. So client involvement will be very high in the project. So we are not going to deliver entire application in the single shot. We are going to deliver the project to the client in the multiple releases. Client involvement will be high. Client feedback is very important. In this, requirements are not fixed. Budget is not fixed. Duration is not fixed. So for example, client provided 100 requirements for development. 100 requirements for development. We are not going to develop all the 100 requirements at a time. Okay. So out of these 100, we will take the first 30 requirements, we will develop as one sprint and we will deliver, we will take the feedback. Then we will go for the next 30 requirements, we will develop, we will deliver, we will take the feedback. Then next 30 requirements, then next 30 requirements, like that. The project will be developed, project will be delivered in the multiple releases. So continuous planning, continuous design, continuous development, continuous testing, continuous deployment, continuous feedback will be available in the Agile methodology. As we are delivering the project to the client on every release, the DevOps team involvement will be very high in the Agile methodology. Because earlier in the waterfall methodology, project will be developed, will be tested. At the end, delivery will be available. But in the Agile methodology, for every 2 months, we need to deliver the project. So continuous development and continuous deployments will be available in the project. That means development team and operations team should work parallelly in order to deliver our application to the client with a high quality. That's where DevOps became very popular in the market. Nowadays in the market, people are following Agile methodology to develop. Are you able to understand what is software development lifecycle? What stages are involved in the development lifecycle? Software development lifecycle is a process which represents application development to delivery process, starting to ending, how a project will be developed in the company. In the SDLC, several stages are available. So there is a waterfall model to develop the project. Waterfall is a linear model. Here, budget is fixed, requirements are fixed, and duration is fixed. So it is applicable for only small scale applications. Okay, client involvement will be very less. But nowadays, waterfall is outdated. People are going for Agile. What is Agile? Agile is an iterative approach to develop the project. Instead of developing everything in the single shot, we are going to develop the project stage by stage. Multiple releases will be available. So in the Agile methodology, client involvement will be very high because for every 2 months, we will deliver some part of the project to the client. We'll take the feedback. In the Agile methodology, requirements are not fixed. Budget is not fixed. Duration is not fixed. If a client is giving new requirements, duration will increase, budget will increase. Got it? So here, up to date, the projects will be developed with the client requirement. So quickly, we need to deploy, we need to develop, and we need to deliver application to the client. So in order to follow this Agile methodology, DevOps tools are very, very, very important because quickly we need to develop and deliver the application. So collaboration is required between the development team and operations team. That's where DevOps became very popular in the market. By using these DevOps tools, we can automate this deployment process, delivery process. Quickly, we can develop and deliver application to the client by using this DevOps process. Are you clear? What is SDLC? What is waterfall? And what is Agile? Clear with my point, guys? Yeah, perfect. So with this, we have covered all this part. Okay, we learned what is SDLC, what is SDLC, and waterfall model. What is waterfall model? What is Agile model? What is SDLC? What is waterfall model? And what is Agile model? So far, we have discussed all these things in our classes. Perfect. Thank you, guys. With this, I'm stopping for today. We will meet in the tomorrow's class at the same time, 7 p.m. with the same Zoom link.